There's few things more satisfying than growing your favorite pepper varieties at home, seed to harvest.
But to get those beauties at the end, we have to make sure that the plants themselves get the right start.
Peppers are certainly not hard to sprout, nor are they all that difficult to grow in the early stages. But if we don't get their conditions just right, or if even one parameter is out of whack, this is one crop that'll let you know it in a heartbeat.
So today, it's all about our pepper seedlings. Whether you're just planting yours right now, or maybe you're like me and they've already sprouted, this is the video for you. I got 5 things we have to watch out for at this critical stage of life, 5 things that are going to determine our success or our failure.
For virtually all seeds in the plant kingdom, germination is a function of moisture and heat. Water softens the outside seed coat while simultaneously causing the contents inside to swell up. The result is a crack, a sprout, and we're on our way. It may seem like it's all about the water, but this process cannot happen at the wrong temperature. If we get that one thing wrong, the plants won't even start.
Our peppers are no different. In fact, temperature seems to affect their germination timing, rate, and viability more so than most of our other crops.
Too low and the seeds take too long, get too mushy, and mostly just rot. Too high, however, well, and you can cook them. The best temperature range to universally sprout peppers is between 75 and 85 degrees Fahrenheit. At these temperatures, pepper seeds will take slightly longer than your tomatoes to germinate. At most, though, 10 to 14 days.
Usually this is done indoors in the late winter to early spring. Sometimes we even need to use things like these heat mats here to supplement the heat. Now, once your peppers do get those first set of true leaves, we gotta back off those temperatures about 10 degrees. Otherwise, we run the risk of them becoming too soft, too leggy, and too lush.
Another parameter that can cause your pepper seedlings to become soft, leggy, and lush is light.
Or more accurately, not enough of it. Pepper seeds being buried don't really need light to sprout, but once they do, light becomes parameter number 1 for success.
To grow properly, peppers need intense full-spectrum light for 14 to 16 hours a day from the get-go. A sunny windowsill works great, as does the top shelf in a greenhouse like this. For those of you growing inside your homes and needing a little bit more light, there's plenty of inexpensive LED grow lights to choose from. I'll link some of the ones that I've used personally in the description below.
Regarding both temperature and light, either or both can cause your peppers to turn purple, like these jalapenos here. It's nothing to be alarmed about, but we should mention why it happens.
Temperatures that are too low can trigger either a sugar buildup or a phosphorus deficiency, while light that is either too intense or the wrong spectrum can cause the leaves to go dark in self-defense. Purple pepper leaves is a sign that something isn't right, and it's almost always to do with light or temperature. It's up to us to fix it, and fortunately, it's pretty easy.
All right, with our temperature and light all taken care of, which will be fine as is all the way up until when we plant out in the garden, we've got our next tip, which is water. Now, this is definitely one area where we can mess up the progress of the pepper if we're not careful.
Just like with the temperatures, peppers are far less forgiving than other crops when it comes to watering, at least in the early stages of life. Moist is always the goal, with too dry leading to disaster and too wet doing much the same. Grown in little containers with a moderate amount of heat, means evaporation is working overtime. The temptation to flood your peppers is high, simply to avoid those daily waterings, as well as the dreaded drought.
Without proper drainage, though, that is going to be a disaster. Now, commercial pots and containers almost always come with holes built in, but if you're using paper cups or containers that you make yourself, you gotta make sure to include drainage.
With the water flowing freely from top to bottom in the soil, especially if you water often, nutrients are going to be high in demand. Peppers, like their cousins the tomato, are always hungry. It's a cyclic fact of life when growing in artificial, confined conditions.
Water, evaporation, water creates this vicious cycle of drying out the soil and then simply washing it of all its ability to hold on to nutrients, particularly cations.
Fortunately, pepper seedlings are only in our care indoors for about 6 to 8 weeks before we transplant them outside. Still, though, nutrient deficiencies can have an effect. Using a soil that is high in organic content is the best way to combat this. As well, when we do fertilize, we need to not overdo it, especially at first. Seedlings, even peppers, are tender, and even if the solution doesn't burn the roots, excessive nutrients is just going to cause rapid, weak growth. At this stage, we need to dilute to half strength and only feed every 2 weeks or so, starting from when the peppers get their first true leaves. Worm castings, compost teas, alfalfa supplements, rock phosphate, kelp, and seaweed extracts are all perfectly great fertilizers for peppers.
Also, if we're going from a small plug to a larger pot before planting outside, the soil inside the pot is going to have extra nutrients, often enough that we can eliminate 1 to 2 of those subsequent feedings.
Pepper leaves tell us everything from nutrients, temperature, water, and light. Be watchful at this time, particularly for any excess or deficiencies.
And this brings us to our fifth and final tip on getting the most out of your pepper seedlings, which is timing. Unlike the other 4 parameters, which are somewhat range bound, if not exact, this one is going to be different for everyone.
Both in terms of sowing the seed as well as planting outside. Most of us that have to start our summer crops about 8 weeks before our last spring frost date. Given a 1 to 2 week germination, this means that our young plants are about 6 weeks old when we plant them out in the garden. This age also works well for our peppers, although they're rarely planted on or around the last spring frost, especially in zones 8 or lower. Peppers are highly cold sensitive, and they need an extra week or 3 for the soil temperatures to rise until they're ready to go outside. Even if the air temperatures are in the mid to high 70s, it's not unusual for the soil below in your garden to be at 55 degrees or less. Pepper plants need 65 degrees Fahrenheit or higher for continued development at this stage, and we want to be planting not only when the plants are ready, but also when the outside is ready to receive them.
For me, I simply count backwards 4 weeks from my last frost date in the spring, which I have to look up for my area, and that's when I plant my pepper seeds indoors. It's worked out great for the last 30 years, as it seems to time the coming of those warm spring days just perfectly. Easy peasy. What isn't easy peasy, though, is our bonus tip. And this one's kind of out of our control. I'm talking about bad or low quality seed. Look, I know the focus of this video has been all about growing our pepper seedlings and getting the most out of them. But if we can't even get those seeds to sprout in the first place, then we've just got no chance of success.
An easy and effective way to see if we're dealing with good seed is to do a viability test about 2 weeks before we intend to plant. Simply place at least 10 of the seeds in question in damp paper towel inside a plastic bag. The key here is to use moist paper towel only, not soaking wet. The seeds still need air and oxygen for this to work. The plastic bag holds in all that moisture, so we shouldn't have to re-dampen the paper towel until after the test is done. I simply fold over the open end to restrict any moisture loss without eliminating any airflow. Keep warm, like we normally would when we plant pepper seeds, and see how many sprout. It should only take about 2 weeks and you'll have all the data you need. You want a germination rate of at least 50% before you even consider using that seed. Some growers will also simply overseed their containers and split them up later after they sprout. This is a great method if you're short on time, space, or even soil, and the peppers don't seem to mind it.
Regardless of how many peppers you grow, they are an amazing crop, and we want the most from each and every plant. This explains why we covered so much info for just the seedling stage. Let's go ahead and recap so we don't miss a thing.
The seedling stage of any crop is a critical time. You want to get the plants growing on the right trajectory so that nothing stands in the way of the epic harvests later on. Peppers are no different. In fact, it feels even more crucial with these guys. Get the growing conditions right from the start, and this is one crop that will reward you with an insane amount of bounty in the end. Peppers. Some people find them super easy, while others may struggle just a little bit.
Hopefully, today, with these 5+ tips, we've set up your pepper seedlings for the most success. Comment down below what kinds and varieties you're growing this season, and let's make this our best pepper year yet.